Good morning. Good morning. Would you please take a seat, and if you have a cell phone, turn it on, vibrate.
You got it.
I want to welcome you to this morning's committee hearing. It's April 21st. We have several items that we should be able to handle on the consent calendar, and then we will begin our hearing. Andrew, we don't have translation equipment. Everybody just excuse me. I'm trying to see what's happening. It's my understanding that the request for the equipment came late. I'm trying to see if I can put something together quickly, so if you just bear with me.
No, it's not the city employee, but it's a company that actually the city uses it as two companies. Ed's in the back. Honestly, if you can get a translation, the headsets, that doesn't necessarily address
Sergeant, if there's a meeting that's supposed to start in room 1060, if you could make sure that that meeting starts, then he'll be able to go down and get some translation equipment. He won't have to start the other meeting. If you could afford me that accommodation.
Number 8, the RSF.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to begin the meeting, and hopefully within a few minutes we'll have, who needs translation equipment? So anyway, we're going to try to bring some up, but I don't want to just delay, so I do want to get started, if it's okay with you. And there are a lot of items that we can take before we get to the item that you're most concerned about. I'm happy to be joined today by my friend and colleague, Richard Alarcon. Mr. City Attorney, we do not have a quorum at this time, so all of the actions will be deemed a communique from the chair. Again, I want to welcome everybody this morning. Madam CLA, we're going to take up consent items 1 through 7. If you could start out with item 1.
Item number 1 is a CRA and CLA report relative to awarding a contract to Troller Mayer Associates with, in association with Melendrez for an amount not to exceed approximately $2.9 million for the streetscape design for linking South Los Angeles to the downtown Figueroa corridor grant. This would also increase the purchase order with Deborah Murphy and for her continued coordination and management of the Expo Park, University Park, CD9 corridors of South Santa Monica Freeway, City Center, and amended Central Business District redevelopment project area.
Thank you. On that item, we'll adopt the CLA report. Item 2.
Item 2 is a CRA and CAO report relative to a request to sell promissory note and trust deed to Boyden Shoe Company, Inc. in the amount of $700,000. This is for a property at 4300 Hatfield Place.
Okay, then on item 2, we've just been joined by Councilmember Perry. So on item 2, we will adopt the CAO's report. And Ms. Perry, if you don't have any concerns or comments, instead of adopting or item number 1 as a communique from the chair, we'll just adopt it as a recommendation from this committee. Okay, that brings us to item 3.
Item 3, CRA and CLA report and resolution relative to awarding a public improvements contract to Martinez Landscape Company. This is for the amount of $270,000 for the construction of the Silmar traffic medians in the earthquake disaster assistance project portions of Council District 7 redevelopment project.
Okay, on item 3, we'll adopt the CLA report. That brings us to item 4.
Item 4, CRA and CLA report relative to executing a 7th implementation agreement to the DDA with LA Arena Land Company, Inc., Flower Holdings, LLC, LA Arena Company, LLC, Olympic and Georgia Partners, LLC, LA Live Theater, LLC, and LA Live Properties. This is to modify the design guidelines and master plan for the development of the LA Sports and Entertainment District.
Okay, on that item, we'll adopt the CLA report as well. That brings us to item 5.
Item 5, CRA and CLA reports relative to amending the prior fund source allocation for the LaSalle Lofts South Second Loan Mortgage Assistance Program in the Pacific Corridor redevelopment project area.
Okay, on item 5, we'll adopt the CLA report.
CRA and CLA report and resolution relative to executing a DDA and development agreement with the with LASA. This is for property located at 8224 South Broadway.
Okay.
This is item number 6.
Okay, then we'll adopt the CLA report on item number 6. Now, even though we're going to continue item 7, if you could read that item.
This is a CDD and CAO report. This is relative to negotiating and executing a city loan contract in an amount up to $2.2 million to assist the Pacific Center Place project.
Okay, on item 7, we will continue that item. Then without objection, the other items will be deemed approved. I do have a public comment card. No. No problem.
Getting it out of the way.
I might not even rush you for time because I'm stalling a little bit now.
You are? Okay, well, that's my...
Depends on what you say.
That's my luck, Herb. Well, I'll try not to offend you too much. Okay. I wanted to hand out... Good morning.
Good morning.
The issue, it was kind of disappointing last night, Herb, because the mayor never mentioned the word housing, he never mentioned the word jobs, he never mentioned the word economic, and he never mentioned the word development. That leaves it to this committee and to this council to pick up the slack. This is where the power lies, in the city council. I again want to encourage you with these renter issues,
Hold tight. No. Okay, let's go on now.
I want to encourage you again.
Take your time, too.
Thank you. I want to encourage you again, Herb, to seriously consider invoking Section 908 of the Charter. It's never been done, but I think it's time now to do it. That section authorizes the City Council to appoint a group of neighborhood council representatives to hold citywide hearings, and it can be a rotating group of neighborhood council members, so you can get the citywide benefit that way. You can help empower the neighborhood councils this way. But these hearings can produce the kind of information, data, that you need as a policymaker in order to make the right decisions. We have the gap. You guys are very busy. Potholes in policy, your staffs are overwhelmed. It's a very difficult challenge. We can't do it in the span of an hour hearing even once a week. I really strongly encourage you to want to try to do that. The handout, for example, that I gave you is from an entity called DS News. It talks about a Michigan program that uses the federal funds to basically set up entities that will help people in distress who are unemployed, who need foreclosure relief. Now, again, you know that I've been a big advocate of TOPA, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. Herb, I'm telling you, and I will say it again, this will unite the city. It will help bring the city together. Today you had on the agenda a soft second issue. The funding, I think, can be there through the Housing Affordability Trust Fund. We have situations where you can provide these soft seconds. We can basically empower the people economically and politically. And again, this idea, among other ideas, can hopefully really truly bottom up from the community. And therefore, again, I just want to hopefully get to a point where you'll be persuaded to give serious consideration. We can get a consensus and we can get something going here and get these ideas flowing. Because in the end, I think it'll work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, as we move to the next phase of the hearing, we're going to start off with the panel, and they'll be given a half hour, give or take, and then we'll take the comments from the public that are here today. So, Madam CLA, if you could read item 8.
Item number 8 is a panel discussion of the rent stabilization ordinance by participants on the RSO Oversight Committee relative to the concerns for owners' rights.
Oh, okay, so can we get the representatives from the panel to come forward?
Oh, okay. Where is it? Okay. Permítame por un momento. Es equipo de traducción aquí con la. Who's it with? Who's got it? Con Marie
Guadalupe.
Oh God. Okay. Es no más equipo. Okay. So usted necesita servicios en español. You can have the translator speak out loud.
What happened?
They ran out of equipment. Who's the translator? Okay, you are?
Yeah, I'll be volunteering.
Okay, well, you may have to, if
Do it loud, simultaneously?
there's more people who need equipment than we have.
¿Quién necesita una máquina de traducción? ¿Quién tiene? ¿Quién necesita? ¿Nadie más?
Okay,
Okay, then we're good.
okay.
Mr. Alarcon. Okay, Jim, before we get started, or you get started, maybe you could, how do you foresee this happening? Is there a specific order so that I can follow it, or, who's going to go first, who's going to go last?
Well, I'll introduce the panel. We're not sitting in order, but we do
Okay.
have sections of the presentation that we'll be giving. I guess I'll introduce everybody first, and then when they start on their section, maybe they can reiterate. And then what we'd like to do is kindly ask the committee to hold questions until we're finished, and we'll be glad to answer them afterward. And if you do have questions that need to be answered, that we hold time.
Oh, I definitely will hold time, and I'm sure the members will attempt to not ask any questions until it's over, but sometimes you just, need to get something clarified at that moment. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jim Clark with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. To my left is Ryan Manier, who's the Executive Director of CAA, California Apartment Association, LA. To my right is Tanya Cardoso, an attorney who represents rental property owners, and next is Dr. Christopher Thornburg, who is with principal at Beacon Economics, who will be discussing the economic factors of our proposal. Who's going to introduce our slide projector lady? But she sat back down.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Sorry. Anyway, thank you again for the opportunity. We resurrected a group before my time that was called the Los Angeles Housing Council. It was actually put together to review the study from 1993, 17 years ago. We all know that that study was kind of swept under the rug and nothing was used. So we got this group back together. You can see who the members are on the screen. But our goal is basically to work collaboratively with the city and tenants groups to ensure the continued health of our current and aging housing stock. Preserving the affordable housing stock in the city of Los Angeles, again, which is aging, is very, very vital to the health of the city itself. And these properties need TLC. Some of them are up to 100 years old. So with that goal in mind, we secured money for the study, and here we are to respond to it. Chris, why don't you go ahead and...
Well, if this goes this slow, this is going to be a long presentation.
Oh, no.
All right. Yeah, hang on. What's going on? What is going on?
I don't know what's going on.
Is this downloading from some other place?
No.
Can we hold time for computer glitches?
Yeah, hold the time out.
Yeah, okay.
But I
Right,
want
yeah.
the
So-
people that are here to be able to see it.
Okay, I got it.
Are we cooking with gas now? Is
Yeah.
it working? Okay.
I think so. It's going to be a little slow, so do bear with me. I do apologize. I'm Chris Thornburg. I'm a principal at Beacon Economics, an economist who studies the regional economy as well as the state and national economies. And I was asked to take a look at the housing market, specifically the rental market here in Los Angeles, on behalf of the landlords. It's interesting. Last time I actually testified in front of City Council was also on a housing issue back in 2006. Back at that point in time, of course, the City Council was discussing the possibility of putting a moratorium on condo conversions at that point in time. My advice at that point in time was that moratorium shouldn't be put in place because the issues of condo conversion were taking place in large part because of the massive real estate bubble that California and, of course, Los Angeles was in at that point in time. And my point was this will all go away when the bubble breaks, and not only will it go away, but I think you'll find there's a flood of new rental properties being put on the market as a result of a lot of condos that didn't sell. So with that in mind, here we are in 2010, and of course, you've recently received a report on the state of the rental market. And it paints a very severe picture. The picture it paints is one in which landlords are making extraordinary profits and renters are really getting squeezed by the marketplace. But that report was written on the basis of data, again, from 2006, 2007, again, in the midst of that real estate bubble. The market we face today is considerably different than the market that was in place when that report was written. And in many ways, what you've seen happen over the course of the last 2 years is with the real estate bubble bursting, with suddenly many new properties being put onto the marketplace, we're dealing with a world in which the power in the rental markets in Los Angeles has shifted from the landlord to the renters. It's no longer a landlord's market, but in fact a renter's market. And what I have is some information today which shows you the current state of the market and talks a little bit about the potential economic impact of the proposals being made for reform of the RSO process. Really, there's 3 parts to my presentation today. The first part is talking a little bit about landlords and what the financial situation for the rental market is today. And landlords, as it turns out, aren't doing quite as well as you might think. I also want to talk a little bit about these floor increases that have been discussed. This idea that floor increases, this 3% floor on rental increases should be removed because A, the economy is in deflation, and B, because it overstates the costs of running an apartment building. Both of those assertions are in fact wrong. And then last but not least, if we have time, I do want to take a closer look at the overall issue. Housing is in fact a pet issue of mine. It's something I've been studying. There is a severe lack of housing in Southern California, in the city of Los Angeles. But my feeling is we need to take a closer look at the issue and figure out why that situation actually exists. And I do apologize for these slides. Hopefully this will go a little quicker. So with that in mind, let's start off by talking a little bit about the current state of the market. So when the RSO study was completed back in 2007 or early 2008, you could see the state of the market. In fact, vacancies had hit close to 4%, very, very tight market. Rents have been rising at a severe pace. But of course, with the recession, with the collapse of the housing market, that situation has changed dramatically. According to data from the Portfolio and Property Research Group, vacancy rates in the county of Los Angeles are already up to 7.5%, and they forecast that those are going to continue to climb through the course of the next year and a half. Rents, which had hit an all-time high, had peaked in 2007, have already fallen 9.2% in the county, and again, they're forecast to fall by at least another 10%. You can see clearly how, again, the market has shifted from being a landlord's market to being a renter's market as a result of the collapse of the real estate bubble.
Do you have City of LA statistics?
I'm sorry?
Do you have City of LA statistics?
The City of LA numbers, unfortunately, don't exist in any clean form, but I have broken out here a little bit by different parts of the county. Obviously, the CBD is the downtown area, Central LA, non-CBD, that represents the core of Los Angeles. You have East LA, which includes some of San Gabriel, North LA, which is most of the valley, but also includes, of course, Burbank, places like that, and West LA, which again is mostly the city of Los Angeles. And you can see, again, rents have fallen since 2006, just going 2006, 2009, by a significant amount in most markets. The one market which you see in rental price increases actually is in the downtown area, but that is not really because there's been rising rents, but rather because a lot of high-end condos, which were originally slated for sale, have been put on the rental market. And as a result of that, you're seeing a big move up in the mix, hence you see that increase in rental rates. And you can see it created across the board in these different parts of the city. There's rising vacancy rates across the board.
Is it,
The next slide, if I remember correctly, could you flip that for me?
I mean, if it's going to work like this, why don't you just play some Jimi Hendrix music and give me some wine or something?
I like.
This resembles some sort of aspect.
I do like the Jeopardy song a little bit better. But you can also see it on the sales side of the equation, how things have also changed tremendously. One of the points made in the RS report is how much the value of these properties has appreciated. Again, that was a bubble market. Prices have been driven up by excess liquidity in the market and really unrealistic expectations of potential profits from condoization by potential investors. In fact, from May 08, when the report was released to today, prices have fallen by about 23% per apartment, according to data from LoopNet. Also using data from Portfolio and Property, that is for the city of Los Angeles. That's not for the county overall. Data from Portfolio and Property Research also show that prices have fallen about 29% based on cap rates in the area, and again, they expect another 16% decline to occur there. The problems with both rents and vacancies and, of course, falling prices has led to other problems in the system. We know that the multifamily market, both here and across the U.S., is suffering severely. In fact, and on a national level, multifamily mortgage delinquency rates have already reached 7% after being at an all-time low of 1% at the start of 2008.
Can I stop you for a minute? We got a quick question.
Ask you,
Yeah, absolutely.
Your rental market by region.
Please don't make me go back.
No.
It might
No,
take
I'm
an
going to
hour.
give more. Don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to know, because I represent South Los Angeles.
Sure.
And I didn't see it on there. Do you have it up on another table?
Oh, no, unfortunately, that data was not available from Portfolio and Property Research.
Really?
Yeah, I know. They one of the problems here is the Portfolio and Property Research really only focus on units that have apartment buildings that have 5 or more units in it. And you look at South LA, it's mostly 2 to 4 units. And so they actually they don't have a big enough sample for that part of the city. Now, there is, my understanding, some data available, and I should have pointed out that we're in the process of writing a report on this, and I will make sure to get those statistics in the final report.
Is there another company that does focus on 4 or less?
There is numerous companies that we can.
Is that where you'll?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I will do the best I can. And there's a member of the National Association of Apartment Owners here. They have told me they have data as well, so presumably they'll also help out for the final report.
I want a full perspective.
Absolutely. Another thing to keep in mind on the right-hand side here, these are monthly notices of default from DataQuick. This is for the city of Los Angeles, and these are on properties with 3+ units. And again, you can see the state of the housing market, how rough things are. We've seen, after really being at a very low level back in 2002, 2003, 2004, over the course of the last couple of years, the notices of default, which is the preliminary step of a foreclosure process, have really skyrocketed in the city. They peaked at first at about 150 units per month, 150 properties per month in 2008. We saw another peak in 2009 at about 200 units per month, and right now, yet again, those rates are again on the rise. The dip downward you see are mainly due to moratoriums. But again, many landlords right now are losing their properties because of the tough market, something we really need to keep in mind because obviously these investors are the ones that keep this part of the housing market running. Now, the other thing I want to discuss is a little bit about this 3% rent floor, getting rid of the 3% rent floor. One of the points that was made in this report is that the economy is now in a deflation mode, and in fact, the CPI is going into zero or negative territory. And as a result of that, that 3% highly overstates, in fact, the true increase needed to offset increases in expenses. In fact, deflation is not real. We're not seeing deflation in the U.S. economy. What you saw in the course of the last couple of years was a huge spike in energy prices, and then they collapsed, and now they're rising again. And that was dragging around the CPI statistics. Indeed, right now, at a year-over-year basis, that white line there represents the CPI. You can see the CPI overall for the nation is running at about a year-over-year pace of about a little over 2%. So deflation is not a real issue. Prices continue to rise. On the right-hand side here also, I want to point out to you a little bit about what this 3% floor means and how it compares to different estimates of prices in our economy. Because when you think about the CPI, you're talking about the basket of goods that your average consumer consumes, the increase in the price of that average basket. That doesn't necessarily reflect increases in the cost of running rental properties. On the right-hand side here, you can see between 2001 and 2008, the U.S. CPI rose about 2.8% per year. That's, again, is the average basket of goods for your urban consumer. The minimum RSO increase is about 3%. Los Angeles utilities, this comes directly from the CPI for the Los Angeles region. Utilities in our area, of course, which is a substantial part of any landlord's expenses, have been rising at 4.6% a year. And according to data from the National Association of Apartment Owners, rental unit operating expenses, which are based highly on energy prices plus various services, have actually been rising somewhere on the order of 5.5% per year. So do bear in mind that when you're looking at the CPI, it in fact is not even an adequate representation of the cost of running these particular properties. In fact, 3% still is less than the average increase in running one of these apartment buildings.
Wait a minute.
Mr. Alarcon,
Yeah, the utility,
hold his time.
4.6% is reflective of the increase in utility costs.
Yeah, that's all utilities, water, electricity, gas, so on and
It's
so
not
forth.
reflective of a percentage of the rent.
That's true. That's the average
And
increase.
under the
per-
RSO, property owners can pass on the utility costs,
Of 1% for electricity and 1% for gas for central meter buildings.
total of
That's right.
2%.
Right.
So, I'm not understanding how you're connecting that with the cost of rent.
Well, I wasn't actually talking about the pass-throughs. I was primarily talking about the 3% floor, because actually most buildings in LA are no longer
That's what
centrally
I'm not
metered.
understanding. You're talking about utility costs relative to the 3% floor.
Right.
But the utility costs are adjusted with a pass-through.
That's
So
absolutely right, sir.
You're comparing apples to oranges.
But I wasn't talking about the pass-through. I was talking about just the 3% floor.
And
Well, I know,
And running these buildings.
why are you implying that utility costs affect the 3% floor, when in fact there is a separate allowance for passing through the utility costs that have nothing to do with the 3% floor?
can I just add something?
No, I want him to answer the question.
Well,
Sir, I'm not really sure what you're asking me, to be perfectly honest with you. The data I put there was simply to show how different baskets of goods have been increasing in prices at differential levels.
You were-
That's all I was
you were
trying to
talking-
show. There was I never made any
You were talking about
information
the
about
3%.
regarding the
You were
pass-through.
talking about the 3% floor.
That's right.
And you implied that the increase in utility costs was was somehow affected by this 3% floor, when in fact, there is a pass-through allowance for utilities that has nothing to do with the 3% floor.
Only to do with centrally metered buildings. And we have to keep in mind that even if a building has separate meters for each unit, the landlord still has to pay, say, sewer costs and water costs, and of course the power
I'm not
just
talking about
necessary to
that.
run the
I'm talking
outside
about
lights
the
and things
utility
like that.
costs.
Yeah,
Talking about the utility costs.
all right.
And there is an allowance to increase rents based on the utilities
For
that has
centrally metered
nothing to
buildings,
do with
that's
the
right.
3% floor.
Okay.
So I think it's a little disingenuous for you to stick it in this as a prominent feature of your report, when in fact there is an allowance for that.
Okay. But the 5.5% overall increase in operating expenses, I think, is a critical number there, and that's the bottom number. Well, that's the important number, because increases, according to expenses, overall expenses,
In that
5.5% per year.
5.5, you're including the utility costs.
That's utilities,
And
plus
again, that
services,
is
plus
skewing-
water, plus
That
sewer.
is skewing your figure and therefore your argument.
I don't think that's skewing the
I
figure.
think it is.
I disagree, sir. Because again, that two pass-through is only for the small number of properties that have central meters. Most don't have that. So most of the landlords in the city don't in fact get that pass-through. Most do not. It's a very small proportion that actually get that.
Two separate categories.
Well, that's fine. I'm sure, and then in the final report, we'll make sure to address that point, sir. But again, let's forget the centrally metered buildings for 1 second. The point remains that the operating expenses for running one of these buildings is rising at 5.5% a year.
But you're mixing it all up together. I mean, if we're going to have
But
an
we don't have a lot of
effectively-
time, sir, and I promise in the
If
final
you're gonna-
report, I'll make sure I will separate those out to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah, we need to separate it out. You can't be bunching all these statistics together and when we're talking about apples and oranges. If there's a difference for the central metered, the centralized meters, then let's explain that.
Okay?
But don't
Absolutely.
try to stick it
final
in
report, no,
and
there was
assume that everything else.
nothing
You
surreptitious
stop
about it.
interrupting me? I stopped interrupting you.
Okay.
You stopped interrupting me.
Always.
But let's segregate it. Let's be real.
Absolutely.
Okay, continue.
Okay. Now, of course, the central statistic that really drove a lot of the suggestions on the RSO statistic had to do with these particular numbers here about rent being paid as a share of income. 42% less than 30%, 30 to 50%, about 27%, and of course 50% plus 30%. These numbers, of course, come from the county overall. They're not, or for the city overall. They do not break out RSO-only units. And you can see, relative to some other cities, how we compare. And this certainly is an issue. There's no doubt about it. Now, in the final report, we'll talk a little bit more about these statistics and how some of these numbers don't quite add up. For example, there's a substantial portion of people that claim that they're paying more than 100% of their income in terms of their monthly rent, which obviously doesn't make sense mathematically. But be that as it may, I think the key point here is to understand that the issues we're facing here in the city have less to do with percent of income as much as overall level of income. In fact, as soon as this next slide comes up, you'll see, in fact, that Los Angeles has a significantly larger proportion of rental units for under $750 per month compared to, say, Long Beach or San Diego. In San Diego, only 13% of units are less than $750 a month. Long Beach, 20%. Los Angeles, 23%. Of course, what we're dealing with here, of course, is that Los Angeles has a substantially lower income population base than the city of Long Beach or the city of San Diego. Now, the reason this is of issue, of course, is because of the fact that we have to understand that the cost of running a rental property, whether it's in Los Angeles, Long Beach, or San Diego, is approximately the same. And so, in a sense, by trying to deal with issues of lower income in the city of Los Angeles as under a rent control type statute, what you end up doing, of course, is squeezing landlords here worse than in other places because of the fact that, again, the cost of renting these buildings is equivalent in all these different cities. In the long run, and this is my last slide, I'll wrap up here. In the long run, we have to understand that the slack in the market today is, in fact, the fact that rents are falling, vacancy rates are rising, and renters have more opportunities than ever before, is, in fact, due to the bubble. The long-run problem we have in California, especially here in Southern California, is really a lack of development, a lack of multifamily construction. Between 1996 and 2004 in the city of Los Angeles, there were 31,800 multifamily units permitted for a new population of about 360,000 people. That's a ratio of 11.2 to 1, which is a vastly too small number. Over the course of the bubble between 2004 and 2009, for the 165,000 new people that moved into the city of Los Angeles, we've ended up permitting 50,000 new multifamily units. In the long run, if you really want to deal with problems of folks not being able to find affordable housing, with overcrowded housing in California, what we need to do is deal with the supply issues. Most economists agree that price controls, rent control is not the way to deal with the supply issue. In fact, in the long run, these exacerbate the issues. So I would implore the City Council to maybe take a step back and ask ourselves, why don't we build enough multifamily housing? Because if we can increase the supply, we don't have to worry in the long run about these rental issues.
Hey, 1 second, Richard, hold the time. From this point on, we won't be taking any more cards from the public. So this is, if you want to speak, do it now. Okay. So, Mr. Alarcon.
It seems like we're doing a lot better.
Absolutely, because of the bubble. And that's one of the issues that worries me.
What is the average number of people in a unit?
I'm sorry?
What is the average number of people in a unit? So multifamily permits were 49,000. I'm assuming multifamily is more than 2.
Usually about 3, yeah.
So we're at 3.3.
Yeah, but don't forget, I'm not including single family, which is another source of housing for the city.
Okay, but you were talking about multifamily.
That's true, but I'm saying, but there's also single family units, and if you add single family units in, obviously that drops below 2.
Well, I wish you did include that.
Because we're focusing mainly
it
on
looks like we're doing pretty good, particularly by comparison to 96 to 04.
Oh, absolutely. But, of course, permits have, since the bubble collapsed, permits have gone basically to 0 in the city of Los Angeles. So I fear that...
Yeah, but the population has also decreaced.
It's starting to go down again.
So
my fear is, though, when we come out of...
You're playing fast and loose with the numbers.
No, I'm not, sir. I don't do that. What I fear is, in the back end of this bubble, you're not going to see... The reason we had so many multifamily permits being put into place in the city of Los Angeles is because of the overall bubble. With, of course, the collapse of the bubble and the collapse in permits, my fear is that you're not going to see a resurgence of construction in the back end of this thing. And as population, again, starts to return to the city of Los Angeles, you're going to, yet again, end up in a situation where we're going to become supply constrained again. So again, I would implore the council to take a step back and address these long-run supply issues, because that will be the best long-run way of dealing, of course, with any kind of shortage in housing in Southern California and the city of Los Angeles specifically. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Are you home-based in Los Angeles? Or?
I am. I'm over by the airport, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Hi there. Ryan Minier, Executive Director of California Apartment Association of Los Angeles. Many of our members are here today. Going to cover shared goals. While we believe some of the economic data does need to be updated, we do agree with some of the recommendations of both the Economic Roundtable and the LAHD. We believe the study and the city's corresponding review of the RSO present a valuable opportunity to implement meaningful improvements to the RSO with input from all stakeholders. The study did cover education and training, and we do agree with the study that education should be expanded and improved. There are many ways which this goal can be achieved. Professional organizations like CAA and Ncla work diligently with members to ensure understanding and compliance with local, state, and federal housing laws. We offer regular classes to owners, apartment managers, and leasing agents covering a wide range of topics including fair housing classes, maintenance classes, property management classes, and classes for property owners who want to learn more about the RSO. Of course, we're happy to provide regular communication from the LAHD to our members through member meetings and our newsletters. The study covered a joint code of landlord responsibility, and we support the need for this joint code of landlord-tenant responsibilities that will set values about civil and reasonable behavior between landlords and tenants. If the city housing code has a process in place to enable owners to hold renters responsible for code violations, then the LAHD inspectors must be instructed to cite whoever is responsible for causing the violations. Renters must be held accountable for violations they cause and owners for theirs. Of course, understanding the law is just one component of ensuring compliance. Enforcement is also a key factor. Regular communications, inspections, and outreach to property owners is important. But inspectors must also understand the challenges faced by landlords whose tenants choose to maintain their homes in a substandard condition. We believe that enforcement must be consistent. Regulations should be clear and easy to follow and not left open to interpretation. Many landlords face challenges when dealing with multiple inspectors who have differing opinions about what constitutes code compliance. Improvements to REAP must also be considered. Changes need to be made to make it easier for new owners to take over properties involved in the REAP program and to make necessary improvements to remove properties currently enrolled in REAP. Lastly, we support the streamlining of the just and reasonable increase process. The Economic Roundtable report recommended the city better promote the just and reasonable increase application process that can be used to address extreme disparities in rent levels. The study recommended allowing owners to raise rent on units where the rent is 35% or more below the market rate. LAHD can do this by publicizing the just and reasonable rate increase application process to its annual mailing.
Good morning, council members. My name is Tanya Cardoso. I am an attorney and I represent landlords in California, specifically in Los Angeles. We are here today to let you know that we do oppose the rent registry program. Rent registry is simply unnecessary. The program may have unnecessarily high implementation costs. It will be a huge administrative burden on the housing department. It will also waste the time of landlords who could be using that time to spend improving their units. The effects of a registry are actually duplicative of procedures that are already in place to monitor and process complaints of the few bad actors that are out there. This is just one other way to assess a fee on the owners of rent-controlled properties. We also oppose any increase of the rent control registration fee as well as the systematic code enforcement program fee that's called SCAP. Landlords are already taxed to the limit. Increasing the rent stabilization ordinance fees, the registration and the SCAP fees, will divert funds landlords could invest into their units. Every dollar assessed to a landlord is a dollar taken away from improvement and reinvestment back into the unit itself. Lastly, we do support the lowering of tenant relocation costs. Relocation costs should be rationally related to the actual cost of moving. It doesn't cost $7,300 to move, let alone should it cost $18,000, which is what tenants are being entitled to as of right now. In the past few years, relocation costs have increased exponentially, while moving costs have remained relatively constant. Relocation fees should revert to their original purpose.
Let me cut you off. It was, stop the clock. It was a battle royale
Of course, we understand.
when we dealt with relocation fees. It is a battle that I don't believe anyone wants to fight again for now. So you may want to move past that part of your presentation.
Mr. Chairman,
No,
Mr. Chairman, I recommended taking that out of the slide presentation.
I mean,
L'Oreal.
yeah, I would have made this a separate discussion, not for today. So anyway, I mean, if you want to continue, that's fine.
I really just have one short statement, and then
Okay.
I would be done with that,
Okay.
that portion. Really, it's our position just that the relocation costs and fees that are in effect right now are basically a windfall for tenants and are punitive to landlords. That's it. Thank you.
You didn't get any applause. No. It's too late. It's too late.
Thank you, Tanya. Jim Clark, again, Executive Director for the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. I want to talk about capital improvement and how we could improve the program that's currently at LAHD. And this also is have a bearing on the job market. And also, I think we can make it have a bearing on the mayor's green program. We recognize, as the Economic Roundtable did, that a 50% recovery on capital improvement is not enough. It's not enough to incentivize an owner to go out and make major improvements to their buildings. It makes it very difficult also to get loans and funding for some of these projects. So we would recommend that the capital improvement program in its current state be increased from 50% to 75% or even 100% on certain projects. Projects such as energy efficient windows and doors and solar panels that might drive down the cost of energy costs for tenants and landlords. So it's a benefit to both. But I think we ought to take a look at projects separately, not just a blanket over every single project. We need to make some of these projects, like green projects and energy efficiency projects, part of the capital improvement program. We can look at amortization on certain projects as well. But I think the program needs to be broadened. I think it needs to be softened up a little bit so that owners can get funding for some of these projects. And again, some of these projects benefit tenants and landlords. We support eliminating the current primary renovation program. It has not been used. It is too difficult. It would have given a 100% pass-through, but amortized over 15 years, and the habitability plan of that program is very, very difficult and scares everybody away. As far as I know, I think 3 of our members in the past 4 years have used it, and I think LHD could probably give some better statistics on that, but the program just doesn't work, and it needs to be scrapped. We also support the theory of rent banking, and I know the theory is good, and we do support that theory only because I think in hard times it could benefit not only owners but also tenants. It would give more flexibility to owners when they're giving their rent increases, instead of kind of right now being forced to use it or lose it, if you will. You really can't be flexible. If you don't give a rent increase, you can't get it, until you can't raise the rent until another year. And you can't, if you adjust the rent increase, again, you can't recoup. Say if you have a 3% floor and you give a 2% increase, you can't capture that 1% as it stands now. Anyway, rent banking, the theory, we support. I'm going to reiterate this again. The annual 3% floor is our safety net. If you look at water and sewer costs alone, and water and sewer is paid for only by the landlord, water and sewer has gone up anywhere between 26 and 32% over the last 3 years. It is far different from what we've gotten in rental increases comparably. I think that, it gives us the ability to keep our buildings up to code. As you know, we are dealing with a stock that is aging. They take a lot of TLC to keep up, and that 3% floor, again, is our safety net to make sure that these buildings stay open. You saw in Dr. Thornburg's presentation that there are a lot of people going out of business. This 3% floor will keep that from happening. Well, the next slide reiterates what I just said. So with that, we'll conclude our presentation. And we still have 6 minutes left for questions and answers.
That's because I stopped the clock.
And we appreciate that. We appreciate the courtesy.
Well, no, you go right in.
I just,
Mr. Alarcon.
so I want to get back to that energy issue. If the apartments are individually metered, who's paying the utilities?
Well, how I was going to clarify what was going on. Let me just,
I just want to know.
I was going to make the statement, well, I'll tell you who's paying the electricity. Yes, the tenants are paying the electricity for their units.
So when he
Let me
said-
finish.
when he
Let me
said-
finish, Councilmember.
Wait,
Finish.
no,
You answered my question. You answered my
wait.
question.
Mr. Alarcon, wait. Okay, this is 1, 2, 1, 2. It's
Okay.
not a blend.
Yeah, the answer was the tenants are paying the utilities. So when you said it's only on central meters, you completely neglected to point out that if they're individual meters, the tenants are paying the utilities. That is such a bogus way to approach this process.
Okay, let's keep it down.
I think
Let's keep it down.
what
Let's keep
Dr.
it down.
Thornburg was trying to get across is that the pass-through, the extra 1% for electricity and the extra 1% for gas is only used in 5% of the existing RSO buildings, because the rest are master metered, and tenants do pay for gas and electric.
Let me finish. Richard,
And my point is that even in these buildings, we have huge electrical costs for laundry rooms, huge electrical costs for common area lighting, heating. I mean, you have to understand, there are very large utility costs, electric and gas, for these buildings. The tenants do pay for their units, but the pass-through is only used in about 5% of the buildings that are not master metered. Now, with that said, water and sewer are not paid for by the tenant whatsoever in the city of Los Angeles. Most of the buildings, the entire water and sewer costs are absorbed by the landlord. That in itself has been a huge burden over the last 3 years.
Let me ask a question. How many, and I don't know if you have statistics, but if you had to make a guess, you referenced laundry rooms.
Mhm.
How many of these buildings have laundry rooms?
Well, I don't know, but, I mean, I can't answer.
And I mean, that's a legitimate question.
I would say that an average building that's got 6 units in it may have a laundry room, but I can't honestly say that, some of the older buildings do. But I mean, those are statistics that you're, asking of me, and I can't tell you. Maybe somebody from Webb or one of the, but a lot of landlords buy the equipment themselves and put it in so that they have that service there on site.
If I may, sir, I mean, and it goes back, there's a very broad, diverse of properties out there, and one of the issues I think we face in these markets is the fact that a blanket controls like rent control increases. I think, unfortunately, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. There are certain landlords that are going to be extremely affected by that, and some that aren't going to be affected by it so much. There's different kinds of buildings, and for every person that is, say, paying a substantial portion of their income for rent, there's lots of people in the city of Los Angeles who are making $100,000, $75,000 or more, and are covered under the RSO ordinances. And we have to ask ourselves, why would you use sort of a blanket control on rent increases, which helps some of the people you want to help, but then helps people that don't need any help at the same time? We definitely need some housing support for low-income families. There's no doubt about it. But my argument would be that a blanket rent control type ordinance, unfortunately, is just too broad. It doesn't get to the heart of the issue.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon, you have any more questions? Will I hear? So do I. I mean, the last 2 hearings, I know we had one where we had the tenants, and now we have you guys, and it's a confusing, debate, and I've got to try to get my hands around how we can have a substantive talk that makes sense to me, and I'm trying to do that. So we have a lot of people that have come today and want to testify. If you guys could stick around for a minute, I'll begin public testimony and try to figure out what the next step, the next short-term step will be. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So I want to start off with, did Ms. Perry have any questions? Okay. So I want to start off with Larry Gross, Michael Millman, and Ann Williams. Please come forward. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Larry, you can go right ahead and start off.
1 minute.
And
Larry Gross, Coalition for Economic Survival. Well, you've just heard a rehash of failed Reaganomics, supply-side, trickle-down, Tea Party economic theories that have no basis in our reality. The rent study clearly showed that the rent burden to tenants has severely increased while landlords have been doing well in LA, even better than other cities locally and nationally. The study also indicated that utility increases have no connection with and exceeds the landlord costs. This is the reality tenants here can testify to. Let me remind you that it's now 5 months since you asked me as a RSO Study Oversight Committee member to convene a tenant advocate panel. No disrespect, but the fact that tenants now face another 3% unjust increase is due to your delay and inaction, and that's why we asked you to take responsibility, do the right thing, enact the rent increase moratorium now while you further discuss this issue. Without this moratorium, you ensure that injustices will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mike Millman. I live in Mar Vista. I had some prepared remarks, but I'm compelled to speak to the truth. I work up the street. I know the difference between apples and oranges. I'm an attorney. I've had judges interrupt me and judges focus. Let's be clear. 2% to 5% of the rental stock in your district, sir, okay, maybe have meters which the tenants themselves pay. The other 95%, sir, the owners pay. They pay the water. They pay the sewage. They pay the refuge. They pay the exterior lights. They pay the laundry room, which they underwrite. That's gone up 24%, sometimes 10%. There are new units that have been built which have the meters for the tenants, but those are exempt from rent control. The CPI that we've operated under for 30 years is what? I passed it out. It's bankrupt. It's illegitimate. I guess that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Good morning. I'm
So what are we going to just, sir? Sir, 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 sir.
I respect him, so I said sir. Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, me too.
Good morning. I'm Ann Williams, Vice President of Legislative and Legal Affairs at the Central City Association. Please consider that apartment owners are being affected by the downturn in the housing market, and foreclosures of apartment buildings are on the rise, just as they are with single-family homes. When rents stagnate or even fall, the landlord is still obligated to maintain the building in good condition. The fixed costs to the landlord of carrying the property remain constant or increase. If an apartment owner cannot collect rents in an amount sufficient to cover the costs, the owner faces foreclosure. And foreclosure of an apartment building can be a very bad scenario for tenants because tenants are still bound by their lease, yet the conditions at the property often deteriorate rapidly in the absence of an engaged landlord. So please consider the very real effects of rent control on the lives of both tenants and landlords across the city. And more importantly, Altering the laws governing rent control sends the message to the business community that the City of Los Angeles is not open for business and will discourage further investment in the aging housing stock. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Hollenbeck, Betsy Handler, and Michael Fernick. Linda.
Thank you. My name is Linda Hollenbeck. I'm an attorney representing landlords. I'm also on the California Apartment Association LA board. As an attorney, I'm in court almost daily, and I'm dealing with what appears to be massive layoffs and furlough days. I'm having a very hard time reconciling this study and the premise that the economy is robust and things are so much better when the courts and other government agencies are taking such a big hit. What I would propose is if the floor on rental increases is dropped, SCEP fees and registration fees are increased, that the landlord should also be allowed to have a reduction in services that is non-punishable. I would almost suggest that the landlords be given the opportunity, just like the government agencies, to have a furlough day once a week to cut their costs so they can meet the other hits that they're taking. No leasing office, no maintenance that day, no courtesy patrol, no pool, no spa, no business center, and no other services. And I think if we did that, just like the government agencies, we might be able to absorb the hit and offer the proper services on the other 6 days of the week. Thank you.
Thank you. Betsy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Betsy Handler. I'm the Director of Legal Services at Inner City Law Center. Some of the questions that I heard this morning, most definitely the last question, Councilmember Wesson, about which study to believe, urges me to remind you to look carefully at the bases of this study, which is based, by their own admission, on the L.A. region. What is the L.A. region? What about the city? What about RSO? You need to look very carefully because, as Mark Twain once said, there are lies, damned lies, and statistics. And I think we saw a wonderful example of that this morning. I would also like to point out that rents are going down only in vacated RSO units that are on the re-rental market. They are going up by 3% in July for occupied units. And in 6 years in this job, I've seen one building with laundry facilities, and they were closed by the landlord.
Thank you. Mr. Fernick.
Good morning. My name is Michael Fernick. I'm the chair of the California Apartment Association, as well as a landlord myself. We are, at this point, committed to providing quality housing to the city of Los Angeles, and we need your help to tell us how we can do that. My question for you is, I just had a meeting with the people that haul my trash, and they told me that their hauling costs have gone up 15%, and I need your help to help me negotiate that cost if I can't pass it on to the tenants. Can anybody here sit with me with the trash company and persuade them to bring down the pricing for the hauling so I don't have to pass the 3% through? If anyone can do that, then I don't think we need the increase. Same thing with utilities. If you guys can help us sit with the utility company and tell them that we can't afford to pay these utility costs, please help us do that, and we won't need to have this discussion, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Bowdoin, Brandon DeHart, Dr. James Bothard. Good to see you again, Doc. Ron.
Good morning. Ron Bowden. I'm a member of CAA LA, as well as the general manager of Park La Brea Apartments, the largest rent stabilized parcels in the city. And just to speak again, it's been said many times, the utility costs that don't get passed through to the residents are the ones to keep up the common areas of the buildings, and we're seeing vast increases in what those expenses are. And as well as our residents having to pay the increase in the electric rates that we all are. This has been a big subject for all of us that live in the city on what's happening with our water and electric rates. And so we're also here to throw our support behind not lowering the the cap at 3%. So thank you.
Brandon DeHart.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Brandon DeHart, and I'm a member of the Coalition for Economic Survival. I live at the Park Norton Apartments near Crenshaw and Pico in District 10. I would like to thank Mr. Alarcon for introducing the moratorium on rent increases in rent control units this year. I'm here to urge the other council members, particularly Mr. Wesson, to support this. I'm currently being charged 40% of my income for rent in a slum-like building that has been infested with bed bugs for years. My neighbors and I are being bitten and driven crazy by this, and our landlord, Aaron G. Cohen of Rosa Properties, continues to ignore us. Why should the city allow a slumlord to increase our rents when we are already being overcharged for living in substandard conditions? If my rent is allowed to be increased this year, I will find it harder and maybe impossible to pay my bills. If rents are allowed to be increased this year, people may be forced out of their apartments and onto the streets, further straining city services. Again, I am urging you to eliminate the minimum rent increase and eliminate the additional rent increases for gas and electricity payments to bring policy more in line with the economic realities that tenants are facing. Until then, please introduce a moratorium on rent increases in rent control buildings.
Thank you. Keep it down. We're pressed for time. Doc?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, council members, and our esteemed city attorney. My name is James Bethard, and I represent the DAV, ACLU, also the ADA, Cal Life ILC, and CES, Coalition of Economic Survival. And we are in support of Mr. Alacon's moratorium for 1 year. Everybody has bypassed this one important part, that this is a temporary moratorium on the 3% bottom. What we would like to do is to take this in order to throw an increase in here. We have an economic slump, that is true. No one's looking at the GNP at this point, and what we need to do is look countrywide and see that when we increase the rents, we throw the people on the streets. How are they going to support their families and support their job at the same time when the cost of your medication, your food, and your transportation all rely on having a base to live? When you have to get out of the rain in order to avoid being ill, then you need a home. If you increase your rent, then you don't have a job. If you don't have a job, you can't pay the rent. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for this time.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
Doc. Thank you, Doctor, and our esteemed city attorney. Mark Wagner, Valerie Coons, and Tara Bannister.
I too had a little speech prepared, but I'm just going to keep it simple. I run 775 units of rent control properties, and the bottom line is, no matter what anyone says, we earned 5% less revenue last year in revenue, and we're earning less than we budgeted this year, and our costs are going up. We have fixed costs that are going up, whether they be taxes, utilities, or whatever. In the long term, the 3%, has worked. We have many people in our properties that are below market rents. And a recent example is that I looked at the monthly increases for one of our properties. There was 17 increases possible. 4 of those residents are paying $275 below market rents. The other thing I wanted to say is the pass-throughs. I very support rehabbing this issue. The pass-through amounts are just not enough to promote properties keeping up their communities at the current rate. There's not enough return.
Thank you. Ms. Coons.
Good morning. My name is Valerie Coons, and I also I'm a portfolio manager, and I oversee 628 units in rent control area. I wanted to just talk about 2 things. One being I do oversee buildings that we do the 1% pass-through for utilities. This is really not significantly, does not cover our utility costs because of the maintenance of the buildings that is required. These buildings are 45 to 50 years old. So the maintenance costs and the utility expenses that are fixed in all of our landscape issues because we have beautiful, mature landscape that requires a lot of care. We have significant amenities that we have to keep up, so that is really not enough. Secondly, the pass-through process for capital expense is very, very onerous. It was extremely tedious for me. I dotted every I, crossed every T, and it took 5 months to get a response, and then 2 months later to be able to implement. That was 7 months. So that really needs to be relooked at.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Bannister.
Good morning, council members. My name is Tara Bannister. I now work for the National Apartment Association, but I still live here in the city of Los Angeles in a rent-controlled apartment. Two items I wanted to bring to your attention in 49 seconds. One is I had the distinct pleasure of actually being on the oversight committee. So I know this study like the back of my hand, being probably one of the 4 people that read it cover to cover twice. There are 2 things that I wish we had done in hindsight. One is rent stabilization ordinance protects high income and low income alike. Many people cannot afford to pay a rent increase. It's not based on CPI, and many people could afford to pay it. So any type of moratorium or a 0% increase helps some people that don't need it and some people that do. The second item is when many of these buildings were bought, it was during the bubble. And when their lenders wrote their notes, they expected that there was a 3% floor when they wrote the note so that these landlords could buy the properties. So taking that away makes it very difficult for those new owners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich Otterstrom, AJ, and Alma Sacido. Go on. Good to see you again.
Hi, I'm Rick Otterstrom, a realtor and a member of the Beverly Hills Greater Los Angeles Association of Realtors. I just wanted to point out that real estate goes in cycles. I think we all know that. There's a cycle of profitability, and then there's a cycle of lack of profitability. It goes up and down. The cycle we're in right now is lack of profitability and huge vacancy. Some of the council members on the city council have rental property. They know that owners and management companies keep power on while they have vacancies to show the property and to work on it. The city uses the Department of Water and Power reports to determine vacancy. The true vacancy is much higher than what DWP reports. Many buildings today have vacancy of 10 to 20% in an individual building. The economics of maintaining rentals is dire right now. This is not the time to consider a motion on moratorium or reduction on the allowable rent range. Actions of this type will encourage more foreclosures in multi-housing units.
Thank you.
Buenos días, señores miembros del Consejo. Mi nombre es Alma Salcido, residente de Boyle Heights, Los Ángeles, desde hace más de 30 años. Estoy aquí hoy día para apoyar la moción del concejal Richard Alarcón.
Good morning. My name is Alma Salcido. I've been a resident in Boyle Heights for the last 30 years, and I'm here to support the motion that was put forth by Councilman Alarcón.
Sobre no incremento a las rentas, congelar las rentas.
Regarding the moratorium on increasing rents.
Ya que la situación por la que estamos pasando económicamente se encuentra demasiado mal, demasiado deteriorada.
Where I, particularly in my case, what I've been facing is a very difficult economic situation in my family.
Hemos perdido empleos estables, por lo que no tenemos ni seguros médicos ni lo suficiente para que nuestras familias sobrevivan.
With losing jobs and not having medical or health insurance.
Además, las casas donde vivimos se encuentran en malas condiciones y aunque pedimos que estas se hagan arreglos, lo hacen, pero nada más como Mickey Mouse y para pasar las inspecciones.
And particularly in her building, she lives in bad housing condition. They don't do a lot of repairs, and when they do some repairs, it tends to be Mickey Mouse repairs.
Y pues no sé por qué estas inspecciones pasan, porque creo que el sistema está mal de inspecciones no hay buena calidad en estas inspecciones.
And she doesn't understand why the inspections still pass, because there doesn't seem to be a good quality of standards for these types of repairs to pass.
A lo mejor porque el dueño se encuentra presente cuando están haciendo las inspecciones y no miran los defectos.
And maybe it's because a lot of times the landlords are present during the inspections, and so they don't always show all of the defects.
Y el inquilino, pues, por ignorar a veces sus derechos o por miedo de que ahí está el dueño, de que ahí está el inspector, no dice nada.
And a lot of times tenants are fearful to speak up and show them because the landlord is present and they fear retaliation.
Thank you very much.
Gracias, ustedes.
No AJ? Is there AJ? I mean, that's all it says, AJ. Okay, Claudia, no, Hilda Garcia, Laura, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the last name, Claudia Gomez. Laura Quadros.
Hello, my name is Claudia Gomez, and I live here in the city of Los Angeles. I'm a tenant, and I'm a low-income family. My family income is approximately of $1,600 right now, and we live in one apartment unit, one apartment, and one has one bedroom. And we pay $1,000 for this apartment. We are 6 members in my family, and me and my dad work to support our family. We also have been living here for about 10 years, and in 10 years, only one time they have done, I'm sorry, I get really nervous. They have done repairs. We started paying $500 at the beginning, and now we're paying $1,000. We also had illegal encroachments, and I know a lot of people's going through this. My dad is working not too many hours, and I also work to support my family. We have kids, and I just want you to think about the increasements, because we pay our utility bills, we pay gas and electricity, we don't pay water, but we also have other things to pay, and just keep it in mind.
Thank you. And you did very well, by the way.
Hola, buenos días. Yo soy la señora Hilda García y vivo aquí en Boyle Heights. Y vengo a que no suban las rentas, apoyo al concejal.
Good morning. My name is Hilda Garcia. I also am a resident in Boyle Heights, and I'm here to support the motion of Councilman Alarcon.
Yo soy madre soltera, tengo un hijo de 22 años que está enfermo de esquizofrenia y hasta ahorita no he podido recibir ninguna ayuda. Voy a un lado, voy a otro y se me hace difícil. Y pues imagínese yo con mi hijo enfermo de 22 años en la calle, ¿qué voy a hacer? No se puede eso de que suban las rentas.
So I'm a single mother. I have a 22-year-old son who is schizophrenic, and so I have to take care of him, and I don't receive any type of economic help for that. And it will be very difficult if my rent increases and then I have to live on the street. What will I do?
Por eso yo me opongo de que suban las rentas, porque en realidad no podemos pagar tanto dinero ahorita, y menos en Boyle Heights.
So this is why I come to say that I support not having increases in our rent, because it's very, very difficult for us, especially in Boyle Heights. There's no other form of monetary help.
La gente siempre me decía que era muy alegre, pues ahora siento que ya no soy alegre, ya siento que me estoy apagando, y eso no me gusta.
So many people say that I'm very, very happy, a happy person, but deep down inside I'm not happy because it's very difficult for me to be able to make my rent.
Ahora pienso que sí entiendo a la gente que a veces hace suicidio, que se suicidan porque no hayan la puerta, no hayan qué hacer, no hay lugares donde nos ayuden, nos rechazan, vamos a otro, nos rechazan, pues no sabemos ni qué hacer.
So there's a lot of people in my community who are also very depressed and sometimes suicidal because they're so distraught that there's nothing that they can do. They have no money to be able to make their rent.
Yo nomás quiero que consideren que hay muchas personas en Boyle Heights que no tienen dinero para pagar renta.
So I just want you to really take into consideration that there's a lot of people in Boyle Heights who just don't have the money to pay more rent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Alarcon, can I ask you to monitor this for 1 second? Please.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Laura Cuadros, yo trabajo en la Unión de Vecinos, es una organización en el área de Boyle Heights.
Good morning, my name is Laura Cuadros, I'm a member of Unión de Vecinos, an organization in Boyle Heights.
Es difícil no permanecer emotivo cuando uno escucha testimonios de personas que están pasando situaciones tan duras en nuestra comunidad.
It's very difficult for me to continue to listen to the stories of a lot of the residents and all of the difficulties that they're going through here in this community.
A nuestra oficina llegan diarios 5 o 6 casos de familias que están desesperadas porque no pueden en ese momento pagar las rentas.
In our office, on a daily basis, we get 5 to 6 cases that come in with people saying that they cannot pay their rent.
Gente que está perdiendo trabajos, que no encuentra no encuentra ayuda para poder conseguir ese dinero. En ese momento de crisis no hay dónde conseguir más dinero para pagar las rentas y otros gastos.
In a lot of these cases, people are talking about how they've lost their jobs. They have not been able to find any type of help or support of where they can help to get their rent.
Y no puedo imaginar qué van a hacer estas familias si es que la renta vuelve a subir ahora el 1 de julio.
And I cannot imagine what is going to happen to these families if there's a rent increase starting in July.
Por este motivo, yo apoyo firmemente la propuesta del concejal Alarcón de hacer una moratoria en los aumentos de renta para el próximo año.
And for this reason, I adamantly support the moratorium that Councilman Alarcón is proposing.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Okay, Maria Sandoval, Stuart Wildman, and Elizabeth Blaney. Now you've got the calm, Mr. Spock.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es María Sandoval y vivo aquí en Boyle Heights. Y yo apoyo la moción del señor Alarcón a que no suban los aumentos de la renta.
Good morning. My name is Maria Sandoval. I'm a resident who lives in Boyle Heights, and I also am here to support the motion of Councilman Alarcón.
Se nos va a hacer difícil porque este dinero que se nos va a aumentar se nos va a hacer difícil para comprar lo necesario. Entonces, yo tengo como 16 años viviendo aquí en Boyle Heights y una sola vez de ese tiempo, de los 16 años, solamente una vez han arreglado mi apartamento.
In her case, that it will be very difficult to pay any type of rent increase because there just will be less money for her to be able to buy the necessities in her house. And she's been a tenant in Boyle Heights for 17 years, and only one time in those 17 years have they come to make repairs to her house.
Y eso solamente lo hacen sencilla, como mis compañeros lo han dicho, lo hacen Mickey Mouse, nada más.
And really, when they did come, it was just a Mickey Mouse type of repair that was made.
Es todo. Gracias.
That's all. Thank you.
Boy, Mickey Mouse has come up quite a lot today. Stuart?
My name is Stuart Waldman. I am president of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association. We represent businesses that employ more than 100,000 employees in the San Fernando Valley. We are here to express a concern that we have over policies that this city is taking that, in essence, pit landlord versus tenant. Now, on the one hand, you're raising electricity fees. You're raising other fees. On the other hand, you're saying to the tenant that they shouldn't have to pay any more rent. You're also saying to the landlord that they shouldn't be able to raise the rents. We're concerned, and we hope that decisions aren't being made in a vacuum, and that when you do make decisions, you look at everything and consider what effects they'll have on everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth? Finally, you get to speak for yourself.
My name is Elizabeth Blaney. I'm a resident of Boyle Heights. I am also a member of Unión de Vecinos. And the first thing I wanted to say was to respond to the comment about that landlords need a safety net. There is no safety net for tenants. There is no safety net for tenants. What there is for tenants are increases in bus passes and metro passes. There is for tenants more cuts, as the mayor announced last night, to jobs. There are lower wages. There are cuts in the libraries and the parks and the other services that tenants receive.
tenants tend to, because of this economic crisis, have been going to the street to do street vending, and there's high enforcement and raids, especially in Boyle Heights, going around street vending. So since 66% of Los Angeles are tenants, 75% in Boyle Heights are tenants. And how much more can tenants take? We just can't take any more because we don't have a safety net. So having this moratorium will be a break for us. We're talking about people's basic roof over their head versus investment income for many landlords. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Linda Valvinde, Al Sabo. I thought I saw Al. Yeah, there he is. James Porter. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. First, with all due respect, the report that was presented this morning, other than being difficult to understand and difficult to digest, this really didn't show the real stories of the real people and our real struggles. 7 years ago, I came to Skid Row for recovery. I've tried my best to better my life. My income became higher, so I became ineligible for subsidized housing, and it was right on the edge of the cap. I spent the last 6 months trying to find housing affordable for me, and it was a nightmare. I went to areas like East LA, Boyle Heights, and I was shocked. $1,200 for a small little one-bedroom apartment, with not included with utilities. After a long time of looking, I finally got a break and found something that I could kind of afford. But it also includes, I have to pay utilities. I need to keep my housing. Please, we need this moratorium. We need more changes to the RSO, and this moratorium will give us more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Al, good to see you again.
Thank you. My name is Al Sabo, and I'm a renter living in downtown Los Angeles. The sky is falling. Rents are falling. This is what we hear from the Chicken Little landlords of today. I've lived in Los Angeles for over 30 years, and during that period of time, I've been a renter, and at no time has my rents ever gone down. They always seem to go up, and by this 3% being tacked on every year, indeed they will go on. The real problem here is we have people, there are two residents here from my building, Bob and Carol, who are brother and sister, who saw their SSI benefits, his cut by $300, hers by $400, in essence, take away $700 of their income, and it's like doubling their rent. These are the facts that we face each and every day. These are the hardships we face. Many of you know it. You had an epiphany in talking with the landlord the other day, and if you all heard that story, you would understand that the landlords aren't having a problem. We are. We need this moratorium.
Thanks, Al. And Al, thank you for being original and bringing Chicken Little into the debate. James?
All right. The last time I was here, I asked you to open your eyes to see what we see. Have you? The last time I was here, I asked you to open your ears to hear what we hear. Have you? I asked you to open your heart to feel what we feel. Have you? And I asked you to open your mind to understand what we understand. Have you? If so, I want to clarify one issue. 5% of buildings pass through utility and rent increase is LA lowest income tenants who pay this. We support Alacon's motion. This motion needs to be on the agenda as soon as possible next week. We need rent freeze now.
Thank you, James. General Dusan, Leonard Woods. I remember Mr. Woods. Richard Risty. General?
General Dogon, Skid Row renter. I support the Alicorn motion to freeze all rent increases for the following reasons. As a low-income renter, I cannot afford a rent increase. Rent in L.A. is already among the highest in the nation, while tenants are on subsidized income and those are barely making it. We barely got salaries to survive on, not to mention the additional budget cuts. Now we got to deal with greedy-ass landlords who trying to snatch the
Come on,
last
man.
loaf of
Come on, we
bread out of
got
our
kids
mouth.
that might be listening, so that I just don't tolerate, okay?
These landlords are swimming in wealth. Let's face it. Everybody ain't poor and doing bad. Somebody is winning here. And it's shown by your economic roundtable report you paid $1 million for. It sure isn't the tenants. It's the landlords that's winning. Look at them over there, grinning and smiling. They are greedy and very manipulative like they tried to pull this morning. The city can implement this motion without costing 1 red cent to the city. So act now. Stop the rent increases.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Woods, I believe you're next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a retired disabled person that's on Social Security disability. Okay, number two, I second Mr. Alicorn to do a rent freeze on this for a whole lot of reasons. These landlords over here don't have nobody best interest at heart but themselves and their lawyers. They paid the lawyers this money that you're trying to get from us. Number two, that had already cut Social Security. How can you turn around and lay people off downstairs, then turn around and give the landlords the right to give them a rent increase? This doesn't make any sense, sir. So please, find it in your heart to do the right thing and freeze this rent increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Risti?
Hello, I'm Richard Risti, property manager of Bunker Hill Towers.
Oh, it's time to go.
Sorry. I do agree with raising or keeping the RSO fees and the utility costs, the floor. I also would like to recommend that we do include water as well to pass through, because that isn't a cost that keeps going up. We do have a common area laundry room, so we do pay for water, sewer, and of course electricity to run those laundry machines. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, council has started, and so if you could speak as quickly, and I'm just not sure if what I might have to do, Mr. City Attorney, is just take the rest of the public comment cards and have you enter them into the record, at least note that they were here. I'm sorry things ran a little long, but this is a very important issue. But Karen Seaman, Greg Spiegel, and John D. Jones, please come forward. In fact, Mr. Alicorn is going to make a statement, and then he's going to have to go to council. Go, Mr. Rickard.
Yeah, I do have to get to council, but I know that the motion that I introduced would be a little controversial, to say the least. And I know that businesses are not doing great right now, and many of them are struggling. And I know that apartment owners are struggling as well with their businesses. But I also, and by the way, let me say that I don't need the Apartment Owners Association to tell me about how difficult owning apartments and units are. I have family members who tell me how difficult it is. But I also have family members who are losing their homes and who are having a tough time paying the rent. The bottom line is that we have to recognize where we can make cuts in the worst economy in our lifetime. All of us have been affected by this. And when I look at the balance of interest, the fact of the matter is I believe that landlords are in a better position, not a good position, but in a better position to absorb what the mayor calls sharing. than the renters, who fall deeply and more desperately into dire straits than owners who find themselves in difficult times. I also know that owners have long-term plans and that they can rely on the asset in theory, and it doesn't always work, but that they do plan for peaks and valleys. This is a valley, and I would hope that the owners have suitable plans to deal with it, although this is a unique situation. Renters do not have that opportunity. They were poor when it was good times, and they're poor now. So I'm not trying to impose an additional burden. I wouldn't want it. I would want all the ships to rise. I want the owners to do well. I want the renters to do better. But to not do anything would be tantamount to me supporting an increase in rents, knowing full well that thousands and thousands and thousands of people cannot afford a rent increase. So I choose to introduce a motion to say that I cannot support that rent increase because of the devastation it would do to the 620,000 units of rental, 1.5 million people by estimate. Believe me, I don't do this easily, but I do it out of conscience, and it's based on my best analysis. Now, I do get frustrated when people skew the facts. I appreciate those of you who speak directly to the issue and tell us exactly what your concerns are. I don't like it when people use rhetoric and try to skew the facts, as I said. But that doesn't mean I don't listen to valid arguments of concerns. There may be ways to amend my proposal in such a fashion to soften the blow where it needs to be softened. For example, on high-cost rental units, where the tenants may be able to afford increases more than other poor tenants. But those are things I would like to get to as quickly as possible if we're going to get there. Because if push comes to shove and I have to make my decision is where it stands right now. That the renters can least afford this rent increase. And the owners, while they are struggling through tough times, they can afford it more than the renters. So I'm sorry we're in this condition. This is an economic crisis. I can't solve all those answers, and I recognize the controversies that are present. I just feel sometimes you got to lead with your heart and not with your budget. Thank you.
Okay, Richard, you should hustle. We just got another call, so. All right, Karen Seaman, Greg Spiegel, John D. Jones, you'll be the last speakers, and then we'll read the other names into the record. In fact, we'll have the clerk read the names into the record.
Hi, my name is Karen Seaman. I work for Essex Property Trust. We have 3 buildings, rent control buildings in Los Angeles, totaling over 1,000 units. We are good citizens for Los Angeles. We try to keep our buildings up. We do capital improvements that we are required to do, not required to do, I'm sorry. We do capital improvements to improve our building. We've done the primary renovation improvements. All of those, we encourage you to look at the capital pass-through process and look at what's required for the owners. We have aging buildings. We need to keep them up, and we need your help in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am John Jones, a member of the California Apartment Association Advisory Board. My family owns and manages 4,200 apartment units within Los Angeles. 3,000 of those units are under rent control. We are a family-owned business, and we take pride in our ownership, and we hold our buildings for a extremely long period of time. I wanted to give you just a couple of quick examples of expenses and how they've increased substantially over the previous couple of years, not getting into the utility issue. For example, in 2005, we could buy a 40-gallon individual hot water heater for $125. Due to state regulations, that has been increased to $425 today, almost a 300% increase. This year, what they call R22 Freon for central air conditioning units is being completely phased out. So instead of buying a condenser, we have to buy a whole new system, which is an increase in cost from possibly $1,700 to $4,500. We have many residents who are substantially below the market rent for their units, and we are required to maintain our properties in good condition. If the rent stabilization ordinance is changed to the detriment of owners, then we may determine that the return on investment for owning and managing apartments is not commensurate with the risks that we undertake.
Thank you. Thank you. Come on, let's keep it down. You know, the way we do it here, everybody that speaks is treated with respect. Al, you were, and we have to, even though you disagree with their opinions, that's the only way we're going to move forward, not only in this committee, but in life, period. So here, everybody respects everybody else. Yes, sir.
Greg Spiegel, Inner City Law Center. These are hard times for everybody. I believe these are hard times for landlords, but not just RSO landlords, all landlords and all people. And the times are hardest on low-income tenants. We've heard a lot of testimony about that today. So it raises a question, with high unemployment, decreasing income, cut benefits, the hardest times for poor people right now, what's the justification to provide a bubble around RSO landlords, which this 3% increase would be? It would be different from market landlords. It would be different from what tenants are getting. What is the justification for singling them out for this protective bubble of the 3% rent increase? By not adopting Alarcon's moratorium, City Council would still be doing something. They would be authorizing a 3% rate increase, which is not warranted by the market or by the economic conditions. So please support the moratorium.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clerk, if you could read the names into the record.
Very good, sir. Noel Weiss, Beverly Kenworthy, Christian Frere, Thelmy Perez, Dan Tannenbaum, Maria Elena Rivas, Hilda Garcia, Jesus Roque, Dewan Schultz, Victor Virek, and Sandra Matamoros.
Thank you. Madam CLA, is there any more business before this committee?
No, Councilman, that concludes the agenda.
Okay, well, before I close it, Davin, I want to thank you again, and also Wendy from my office over there for coming up and helping with the translation equipment. I want to thank the both of you. Since there's no more business before this committee's adjourned. I don't